On this episode of Pit Stop, we welcome back our friend of the podcast, Patrick PK Kepke. We recap a dominant IndyCar season, speculate about Lewis Hamilton's performance. We chat about the brewing McLaren driver battle. We fawn over Max Verstappen's greatness and dish about this season's surprises. Welcome to Pit Stop with Don and James. I'm Don, and we have sitting in for James.
I'm Patrick. Hi, everybody.
We got Patrick PK back with us for a second installment. Welcome, Patrick. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Yeah, man, I'm doing pretty good. Of course, it's an off week this week. No race to talk about, which is why I'm not wearing my usual McLaren swag. I went a little different way because there's other things to talk about. We got the Dodgers who picked up another division championship this week. Clinched that up, and they'll be going to the playoffs. So they're my team, Dodgers, and then I've got my Man City shirt on here for nice. My English Premier League. We're in full swing with fall sports. I'm loving it. We've got the baseball playoffs happening. We've got we're of course in the middle of the F1 season. We've got 7 races to go. We have the NFL is in week 3 or 4. We've got college football, and basketball season is like a month away. So this is awesome for me. You tracking any other sports besides your?
I mean, football's rough when you're a Houston fan. I'm born and raised in Houston, so other than a little blip from the Rockets in the 90s. And then the Astros. I don't actually count the first championship from the Astros because of the whole cheating scandal. So I really only count the second World Series from them. But I mean, they're not going to catch. I don't think they're going to catch anybody in their division at this point. And then the Texans are 0-3, or actually they're 1-3 because they beat the Titans today. Spoiler alert. But no. I mean, with IndyCar being done. Like you said, there's a few races left of Formula One. IMSA's still running, and then Australian Supercars has moved into the endurance half of the season, which is also something I'm kind of new. I'm new to that whole thing, so that's interesting to see how they do that. I think it feels like they're kind of making it up as they go. I don't know, but it's still interesting. It's still good racing, so yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't gotten into that at all. I will watch the occasional IMSA race, and I need to go back and watch some of the races from this year. But yeah, you nicely set us up for a segue into what we kind of wanted to talk about first. We don't frequently talk about IndyCar on this podcast, but you are you're sort of our IndyCar expert. So when you pop in, I like to talk about it. And the season's now over. So why don't you let's have a little bit of a recap of the IndyCar season, and I have some notes here. But if you're prepared, why don't you tell us about like how the season ended and kind of some highlights.
Awesome. Well, first of all, it was a historic season, one of the most dominant seasons I've ever seen. It is actually one of the most dominant seasons in my lifetime. Well, maybe not in my lifetime, but in my adult lifetime. Let's say it that way. Alex Palou, he won 8 races. Had he won 9, he would have tied Mario Andretti. Probably heard of that guy. Had he won 10, he would have tied with somebody named AJ Foyt, another guy you've probably heard of, to the all-time, arguably the all-time greats, not even, of the all-time greats. They're on the Mount Rushmore of IndyCar racing and probably auto racing in general, honestly. They're both super dominant across not just IndyCar, but everything. Every time they got behind the wheel, they won, which we'll talk about a guy a little bit later on in this podcast that's doing that right now as we speak. But yeah, Alex Palou had 8 wins. Pato O'Ward came in a kind of a distant second. Scott Dixon third. Really, the interesting thing about IndyCar is that it's over so fast. They don't, they don't run up against, because they race on Sundays and they don't run up against football. So once football season really starts, they kind of have to like clear the runway. Otherwise their numbers and the attendance is going to plummet.
Their
you
core
know.
fan base is really overlapped there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's actually been a really good year fan base wise because with Fox coming in and taking over the broadcasting, Fox also bought a stake in the sport, which is kind of similar to what Liberty Media did for Formula One a few years ago. So Fox has done that. So they've invested really heavily into the sport. There's a bunch of new venues that are being announced like next year and the year after that are exciting. Um, yeah, it's a sport that's on the rise. It was up 20% in viewership and in the fan base, including younger fans like the 18 to what is it 18 to 30 demographic, the coveted demographic, and also for women, which is another big one, another big demographic that everybody tries to grab. So um, really really cool. Lots of silly season stuff which we probably don't have to really dig into who's going where in the off season, but it's been an awesome year. And I just want to say one quick thing about Alex Plo, which is he is such a good ambassador for auto racing. Like if you don't know him super well, or if for the listeners, especially Formula One listeners, if he's just a name to you. I mean, he did come up through the European racing circuit, so probably you've heard of him. But he's such a humble guy. He's so like friendly. He always has time for everybody. Um, One of my favorite things he always says, "Yeah, I got so lucky to win this race," and it's like, dude, you outdrove everybody. Clearly, you outdrove everybody. You know, Unlike Formula One, where it's like if you're in a McLaren, you're probably going to beat somebody in an Alpine, no matter how good or bad you are as a driver.
Right.
In IndyCar, it's a narrow margin between the best car and the worst car. I mean, there is a difference. A
Yeah.
Ganassi or a Penske car will outperform an RLL car, but it's close, and an
A little more,
RLL can still get a top five or a podium reasonably every race. So it's a narrow
parity.
thin margin. Yeah, and Pillow is amazing. So the only other thing I wanted to call out though, and this is since this is really a Formula One podcast, is Colton Herta has been named to Cadillac as a test driver, and the path he's trying to take now. He doesn't have a super's license, which that's a whole other conversation, but he doesn't have a super license. But the path he's probably going to take, the rumor is he's going to go to F2 and race in F2. Now, one of the things that I've been doing since I joined this podcast, a few months ago, was I watch all the F2 and F3 and F Formula Academy races. Number one, it's interesting, but number two, I try to keep my eye now on who the up and comers are. Leonardo Fornaroli, for example, is leading F2 right now for Invictus, one of those two, the yellow cars. He's leading right now. Jack Crawford's doing really well. He's an American driver. So it's really interesting because Colton Herta, who's the highest paid IndyCar driver, going to F2, which is a drop in class. Indy cars are bigger cars and faster cars and all that, more powerful. But it's going to still be really challenging because European racing is different.
Yeah.
All the courses are different. All of that. The experience is going to be totally different. So it'll be very interesting if he does end up racing in F2, how that's going to go next year. When he gets his feet on the pedals of one of those cars. So that'll be good watching, I think, for next year to see how Colton Herta does. So
Yeah, for sure, man. And thanks for the recap. I mean, that was a great recap of the F1 or the IndyCar series season. Man, a little tongue tied there for a second. I did not follow the IndyCar super closely. I think it's about 17 races. Am I right there? 17 races.
that sounds right. I'd have to look, but it's something like that.
And I did kind of recap it. And Pelot won like the five of the first six races or
He
something
did,
like
yeah,
that. It was
yeah,
something insane.
and in
And
dominant fashion too. It wasn't even really close on any of them.
and that included, I think, Indianapolis, right?
Yeah,
So he like just hauled in points at the beginning of the season.
yeah,
Pelot is from Spain, right? He's
yeah.
Spanish.
He is. He's actually the first Spaniard to win the championship and the first Spaniard to win the 500.
Wow. And I mean, yeah, he was just rocking it this year. And I was going through the races one by one, and I'm like, man, Pelot just crushed it this year. This is insane. I also did have an eye out for Herta and where he ended up because I had known about his foray into Formula One, or his attempt to kind of get in there. And and I think he finished the series or the season around like fifth or sixth place. Is that about where you
Yeah, I
remember
mean,
him
yeah,
finishing?
he didn't really do all that great this year. He had a lot of issues in the pits, sort of a Lando, he kind of Lando Norris a few of the races. You know, there was some, you know, there was some missteps. Um, but then he, you know, he's on a team that does really well in certain scenarios, like on street courses, for example. That's, by the way, that's something I should add. IndyCar has four different circuits they run on. They run on street courses, road courses, super speedways, and short ovals, and those are all four totally different setups and skill
Sure.
sets and all that stuff.
Right.
Um, but Andretti, which is who Colton runs for, you know, they do really well on street courses. In fact, his teammate won two of the street course races this year. So, you know, it's yeah,
Yeah, it's a cool series. I don't know really the history on it, but I could completely see it being like the American version of Formula One in that, first of all, it's open wheel racing, obviously, right?
mhm,
The cars,
right,
even though you can pick out which is an Indy car and which is a Formula One car, the style is generally the same, right? But second of all, there was a time when Americans were kind of frozen out of Formula One, right? Like it was a almost like a way, like they were trying to not have Americans blend in with Formula One. I don't know if they're just trying to keep it their own thing or whatever. But that was a part of the Formula One brand or whatever. That it was this
yeah,
international thing, and we're kind of keeping American teams out. Now that's completely changed because of the money that's involved, as far as I can tell. Right?
right,
There's there's so much money involved. There's so much of a market in America. The Formula One can bring in a ton more money if they can capture the American market. And I feel that this year's change for IndyCar, this is just a speculation. I didn't read this in an article or anything, but the change that where IndyCar went from being covered by NBC and being available to stream on Peacock and all of that, the
yeah,
switch to the switch to Fox, I saw a noticeable improvement in the production value of the race coverage, including they poached Will Buxton, who was a an F1 commentator from England, and he's commentating for IndyCar. So I feel like they're really trying to, I think, compete with Formula One a bit, and there is a charm that they will have that Formula One doesn't have. Formula One is a bit elitist. It's a little bit
a little
wealthy,
bit,
and it's a little
yeah,
bit
yeah, yeah,
just it's different in that regard. And IndyCar kind of appeals to the common
mhm.
American, I think, in a lot of ways. Especially the access that you get at the paddock is
Yes,
better,
it's night and day. Yeah, night and day.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, there's definitely we need to keep our eye on some of that as we continue to do this podcast. But anyway,
I think one quick
yeah.
thing I'll just add real quick is
Hmm.
that, you know, you've heard the saying a rising tide lifts all boats. You know, there was a race next year, I think in Montreal, that F1 was going to run at the same time as the Indy 500, and now F1 has pushed it back, you know, to like not overlap the race, which I think is brilliant because the way that Formula One and IndyCar and IMSA and NASCAR and, you know, any series where they, you know, WEC or whatever, WC, um, they need to all work together because auto fans are auto fans. I'm not, you know, I'm not. I mean, I am IndyCar is my favorite, but it's not the one. I don't watch it exclusively.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I enjoy any auto racing, and so
Yeah.
if they're all on and available for me to watch, then I'm a consumer and I'm a fan of all of them. You know what I mean? So I like
Sure.
that. I think that was a smart move by Formula One, which Formula One is orders of magnitude more popular than IndyCar, by the way. Let's not, you know, mince
Oh,
words.
sure.
But you know, being able to, you know, get out of the way. I mean, the Indy 500 is you know, IndyCar is obviously their marquee event. It's the
Yeah.
biggest. It's literally the biggest race on earth every year.
Right.
But it's still one of those things where it's like, you know, if they work together, then they both win. They
Right.
all win if they do that. So I just want to throw that in there.
If my journey into autosport is indicative of others, and I have to
Hmm.
assume it is, right?
Yep.
Then autosport is. I think it is maybe in when it comes to the sporting world, it is one of the most that you could characterize as a gateway drug, right? You get into one and there's a lot of options. If you get into football, you watch NFL and you might watch the college football, but they're almost one and
Yeah.
the same. It's like the feeder series for the NFL, you know. So
Yeah.
I
Unless you're
I,
in
I
Texas, then it's also high school football a little
that's
bit.
true. That's very true. But the point being that I started kind of up here at the elitist F1 level, really getting into motorsport seriously. I've kept a tangential watch on it over the years because in the United States, ESPN covers NASCAR and Indy Car, and so I've known a little bit about it, but never really jumped into the deep end. But with Formula One and Drive to Survive, I'm one of those guys. I got into it. Well, I would say I got into it a little before the Drive to Survive. The Senna documentary was sort of the first thing that really got captured my attention, where I started to pay attention and not just know the names like Michael Schumacher or whatever, but watch races, be interested in some of the news. Okay, so then I get interested in Formula One, but then I was like, well, Formula One isn't running all the time, or on an off week, I'll catch up on the IndyCar races. I see IMSA streaming on Peacock, or I can watch rally races here or there. So I'm still not really deep into those, but I see it as like if you were running IndyCar and you say, hey, if we cooperate with F1 and even 5% of the fans of Formula One now tune into IndyCar, that's a significant chunk of people that are going to put their eyes on your product. So, yeah, I think there's a really a big world within motor racing, and it's not just cars. You can get into you can get into the Formula E, you can get into the MotoGP. All of
Yep.
it's so related enough that if you dangle those threads out there, some people are going to pull on them. So yeah,
For
I
sure.
completely
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah. Well said.
Well, so Pelot wins it. Pato Award P2. Pato Award, of course, another one to kind of keep our eye on because there's been
Yep.
rumors about him Formula One. I'm kind of curious if Pelot is going to get some notice with Formula One.
Yeah, there was a rumor that he was gonna, that they were talking. Somebody, one of the teams was talking to him. It was all just nonsense. It wasn't true. I think I'm just gonna say this. I think that Pillow has a unique opportunity to be the greatest of all time. He may already, like, talent wise, he may already be there, but he has the ability. I mean, he's won four championships in 6 years. uh, Scott Dixon's on his team. He has 6 championships, but it took him over 20 years to get them. Pelot's like a 66% of the time he's going to get a championship. I mean, he may end. AJ Foyt has the record, by the way. He has 7. That's the most ever at 7. Um, I mean, I think Pelot is 28 years old. So he's got another 15 years of racing in him. He could win. He could end up having 10 or 12 of them. I mean, for all we know, especially, he's the best driver on the best team, you know, in a series where that matters. I mean, it does matter a lot. Driving ability matters. And, we have like every year we have new blood coming in, but usually it's junior blood through Indy Next, which is like this next year coming into 2026. There's a rumor that Kyle Collette's going to test for AJ Foyt Racing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so he was driving Indy Next. The winner of Indy Next this year was Hauger, Dennis Hauger, the Norwegian Nightmare. He has the
Oh,
best nickname ever. He won a ton of races, and then he'll. I think he's getting a seat with Dale Coyne Racing. So, that's how we get new drivers. And the reason I bring that up is because it would take something special for Dennis Hauger next year to be competitive with Pelot. I mean, the best drivers in the series aren't competitive. Scott Dixon, who's also one of the greatest of all time, like I said, the guy has 6 championships. He's not competitive with Pelot. Pelot drives the wheels off of him every
yeah,
race. So I mean, he
yeah.
did he did beat them once because Pelot made a mistake, like on the last turn on the last lap, and Dixie got around him. But that doesn't
That's
happen very
that's
often.
racing. I mean, that
That's
happens
racing,
to the
exactly.
to
Yep.
the greatest. But
Yep.
yeah. So uh, there was another thing that kind of came to my mind about IndyCar that, and I know we've taken up more time than we planned on IndyCar, but that's okay. We'll let James edit. But yeah, there's a folksiness too about the teams, right? It's not dominated by huge giant teams like a Mercedes or a Ferrari or whatever. These are kind of your works teams that are, guys that love racing that start these teams up, and so I do think that that's a bit of a charm that is somewhat lost in Formula One because of the amounts of dollars flying around. I will say, Pato O'Ward, who came in second and has, I think, if I'm not mistaken, driven test rides before in Formula One.
Yeah, for
He's a
McLaren. Yeah.
he drives for Arrow McLaren
Yep.
in IndyCar, and so
Hmm.
Zach Brown, of course, knows Pato O'Ward quite well because Zach Brown is the CEO of all of McLaren's racing, not just the Formula One team. He oversees the IndyCar, and he's bouncing between places on opposite sides of the globe to attend the
Yeah.
events. Um, well, okay, so let's keep moving so that we get to the rest of our agenda here. But uh, I wanted to bring up that when you and I talked before, one of the things that came up that I wanted to revisit was Lewis Hamilton, right? So Lewis Hamilton, of course, and I don't know what it is. Why is 7 the magic number of championships? Huh? In IndyCar, we got two guys that are sitting on 7 championships. In Formula One, that are the record holders, and Lewis seems the most primed to beat that record, and he just can't get over the hump. The car at Mercedes dropped off. It was tough enough to drive for the last couple of years that he decides to go to sign with Ferrari. So now Lewis has been driving for Ferrari. We're now, I think, 17 rounds into this year. When you and I talked last time, we posed the question, like, at what point do we say, I don't think he's got it anymore, or it's just not going to happen with Ferrari or whatever with Lewis Hamilton? And I think we had come to the conclusion in the previous episode we talked that it would be around the midway point of the season. We're now kind of past that. Do you have any thoughts about Lewis Hamilton? Any things in his record this year that has stood out to you that you think are pointing one way or the other?
My take's going to be brief because you actually know Hamilton more than I do. You followed him longer than I have, so I'll cede the time to you. But the things I'll point out is I think that his performance has been really mixed. Like he's been up and down. He's struggled in a lot of the practices, which I find kind of interesting. I don't know if you ever watched the practices that they show on
Yeah, I do.
F1. He's really struggled there. And I don't know if it's because Leclerc has been in the car for so much longer than he has, but Leclerc basically outdrives him, and I know that it's like, what engineer do you have and what do your pit stops look like and how well do you know the setup of the car? This is his first time on a new team in a long, long time. I mean, he wasn't born in a Mercedes. He's had to do this before, but he was with Mercedes for so long, and they had such a polished, racing program that it just, it was second nature for him. This is like getting a brand new job where, yeah, you're doing the same thing you did before, but it's a different staff and personnel, and maybe your platform is different. So it's not really that easy. Plus, he's starting to get older. I mean, is he 40? Is he 39? Something like that.
I think he's 37 or 38.
37. Okay, so he's pushing late 30s, which I mean that's fine. He's not going to lose his eye to hand coordination yet or anything, but I feel like he's you know, he's got the experience, he's got the racecraft, and he has the pelts on his wall. Like it's not like I'm saying he's not great or anything. I just
Yeah.
think that you know, I don't. Number one, honestly, I don't know that Ferrari can give him a car to ever compete again,
Mm-hmm.
unless 2026 they're gonna have a new car and new rules. Everybody kind of starts over, so who knows? Maybe Ferrari will be the team that figures it out. By the way,
Yep.
2026 is going to be a lot of fun to watch the first couple of races as the teams are trying to work out because that,
Yeah.
anybody, you could see Kick Sauber winning the first four
Right.
races if they get it right, the formula
It
right.
could,
So, you
it's a
know,
shuffling of the deck.
yeah. So I want to turn it over to you. I'm actually more interested to hear what you have to say about Hamilton since he's your guy.
Yeah, well, you definitely hit on some of the key points, and that's sort of what I'm looking for. It seems like there is a bit of a cliff for any athlete that they go off of, and I'm hoping we're not there with Lewis yet. I'm hoping that he's got a lot still in the tank. By the way, we should give a little shout out right now. Lewis's dog is sick. He's in a coma. Lewis's dog Roscoe. So um, a thoughts and prayers out to Roscoe Hamilton. He got pneumonia. He's had it before, and he's fairly old anyway. And he's a bulldog, so he's got a little bit of breathing issues. So anyway, our thoughts go out to Roscoe, and we hope he pulls through. But anyway, to get back to Lewis, I just watching him in the last few, maybe 2 years at Mercedes, and then this year at Ferrari. I, I I think his best days are behind him. That's my sad conclusion of all this.
Interesting.
You mentioned that he seems to have the racecraft. I'm going to talk a little bit about some stats that back that up. He seems to have the racecraft and obviously the experience. So I think that what it would take for him to win the championship is an abnormally good car, a dominant car, like the Mercedes cars that he has had in the past, or maybe the Red Bull of like 2 years ago. That something in that vein. He's going to need that if he's going to pull it out, because something is missing with this guy, and I don't love it, but it seems the case. Now here's some stats to say why I've come to this conclusion. He's been outperformed by Charles handily this year. Handily. Not neck and neck and slightly edged out, but handily by Charles. He has only outqualified Charles 4 out of the 17 races so far. 4 out of 17. And he's beat him in the race only 2 out of 17 times. That means 2 of the times he outqualified him, he finished behind him. So that's not good. Those are stats that we I think in Formula One at this level, the pinnacle in many people's minds of autosport, and with all that experience that he has, people are expecting him to learn the car quickly. I think learning the car is the most important thing. Learning the strategy and the communication with the pit wall is the next tier down, but he has to learn the car, and he's not doing that. He's not coming to terms with the car. He's not even coming to it enough to compete with his teammate. That's difficult. That's hard
Yeah.
to argue. His best result this year was a sprint win in China. So that was very early in the season. China was round 2. I was like, "Oh, yeah, he's going to do something."
Yeah.
But then the car was disqualified in the race, and so that whole both Ferraris disqualified from the China result. So that threw all of that out the window. He's had some decent recovery drives. Now, this is where I think that the comment that you made before comes into play about his racecraft. I think guys that are wily behind the wheel find a way to make up ground. He's uh, had some decent ones. He went from 9th to 5th in Bahrain. That's not easy to do when you're racing in the mid pack. Those cars are pretty good. So he had to overtake some guys to get from 9th to 5th in Bahrain. From 12th to 4th at Imola. That's a hell of a drive. 16th to 7th at Spa. Now, it's hard to make up ground at Spa. And then 12th to 8th at Baku, the most recent race, which is another good result. And coincidentally, in 2 of those are the 2 times where he beat Charles when he was in a recovery race mode. So something is going off. What we need to see is he's got to get those times on Saturday to qualify near the front, and then the strategy to back him up to turn those into podiums and race wins. So,
Yep.
but I that's something that's sort of shocking to me. The Saturday, the qualifying pace has not been there all year. he can't seem to figure it out, and he's had a couple of really bad qualifyings, to be honest, as we just mentioned here in these stats. But
Yeah, I wonder if it's the car, because now I could be wrong, and you know, I'll admit I'm not, you know, Formula One's not my expertise. The Ferrari car seems to go around one, like it seems to have a lot of oversteer, not understeer where it slides into a corner, but oversteer where the back end wants to step out when they go around corners more than a lot of the other top teams. Not maybe not the, you know, the back marker teams, but the top teams cornering at speed is in Formula One the most important thing, right? So,
yeah,
you know, in the practices I've watched, in the races I've seen, it always kind of seems like the Ferraris struggle on the corners, and that's where they lose the most ground. Now, I'd be interested to know. I mean, you know, we're not going to look at this up while we're on a podcast, but you know, it'd be interested to see like the tracks that are famous for, you know, not a lot of, you know, not a lot of straights, you know, a lot of braking zones and a lot of corners. You know, how did they do on those tracks versus the longer, straighter, you know, the Dakotas of the world, you know, the ones that have a lot of straights and passing zones and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's just been that's, you know, what I noticed is they struggle to corner, but I could be wrong because it's hard to qualify because, you know, when you race, and maybe this isn't true either, but in IndyCar, when you qualify faster than you actually run the race, right? Because you're just trying to capture like one lap that matters the most. So it's, you know, it's balls to the wall. You're on the very ragged edge to, you know, you're either going to crash or you're going to make pole, right? So, um, you know, that's where it matters most. And so
mm-hmm.
if those Ferraris can't do that, they might be fast on race day, but if they don't have the ability to rotate in a corner off the, you know, off the apex, then they're not going to be able to compete, because like you said, they'll end up, you know, qualifying P8 and then they've got to work their way through traffic, which is nearly impossible in modern Formula One, in my opinion.
Yeah, great points. And a couple other things about Ferrari, right? So I can't really speak to any stats that would back up the oversteer issue, other than um, the two things come to mind. The first thing is the both cars crashed out in the Dutch Grand Prix where there's banked turns, and they cooked it and hit the wall. I think it was both in the bank turn, but I I I'm not sure for sure on that one. But so that's one thing, is that maybe there's something there in the, because that hurts them. You know, they've had two races where neither car scored points because they in China they were both disqualified, and in the Netherlands they both crashed. Now, the other key that we may be looking at is that disqualification in China, right? Because the reason that they were disqualified was because their skid plates under the car were too worn away. They were not the required thickness. That says to me that their downforce was adjusted too high, right? Which was giving them grip in the corners. So, I mean, this, you could be onto something there. This is just what's coming to my mind right at this moment. But anyway, yeah, that's true. But the other thing is that even with all of that on the team, Charles has managed to do a really good job this year scoring points and getting his car in a good position on in qualifying. He's qualified on pole once this year. He's had a couple of P2 qualifications. He's had a couple of P3 qualifications. So he's managing to get something done. Lewis isn't quite getting there. With apart from the sprint win, it's been a lot of P4s, a lot of just uh, off the podium stuff that has happened for him. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm seeing. I will say Lewis is currently P6 with 121 points in the drivers championship, and he's right behind Charles, who's in P5. Um, the difference between the two of them is 44 points. I don't know if that's significant. That is Lewis's driving number 44.
Right. Yeah, good
Um,
call.
and and Lewis has been voted the driver of the day twice by the fans. He is maybe a fan favorite. Maybe that plays a
Yeah,
little bit
he's
into it.
absolutely fit. Yeah, he's absolutely popular with the fans for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But Bahrain and Spa, those are where he was the voted driver of the day. And we, as we mentioned before, those both of those races were kind of recovery drives where he was starting in a bad position and made up a lot of ground. So yeah, that's the scoop on Lewis Hamilton. And I hope that my overall conclusion is wrong. I will be uh, I'll be very happy if he can find the form and get going with it. Uh, it's been a little bit hard to watch to see over now a sustained few years him not being able to pull in the the wins like he was for quite some time. So anyway, let's keep moving past the Lewis discussion, and let's talk a little bit about the McLaren battle that's shaping up as we head down into the final 7 races of the year. Our next race, of course, is Singapore, which is next week. But let's talk about that. So uh, during before I go on to my stuff, um, and McLaren, of course, is my team. So I'm going to try my best to be unbiased about all of this. It does seem that pretty obvious that they're going to lock up the championship, the constructors championship, anytime now, and one of the two drivers is going to end up winning the drivers championship. I mean, in all likelihood. So do you have any thoughts about McLaren or about the brewing battle that's happening, and maybe about anything that's happened recently with team orders or any of that kind of stuff? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it would. First of all, it would be a colossal choke job if McLaren didn't win the constructors and both that and the championship. Like that would. I mean, somebody would get fired if those two things don't happen, in my opinion. That's
Yeah,
the first thing. Secondly, though, I will say the team order stuff needs to stop. I know that Formula One gets cute on that crap. I personally, as a fan, don't like team orders at all. I think it's one thing if you're, let's say you're in IndyCar and you're a lap down and the leader's coming up behind you and the person behind them's coming up and your teammates with the guy in second place. You might, your car might be a little wider as the leader's trying to get around you versus when your guy, you may give the other, your guy some more room. That I don't have a problem with. That's just racing. But when Lando has a piss poor, pardon my French, pit stop, and the team radio's like, Oscar, you need to let him by you, even though he was like at the time, I think 5 seconds ahead. I watched that race, and I remember like shouting at the TV, and I don't even like I'm not even a McLaren guy. I'm not, and by the way, I'm not. I don't have a horse in the race. Oscar or Lando, I don't care who wins, but Piastri is clearly, at least in this part of the season, the class of the field from a performance standpoint. Well, maybe Max, but we'll talk about him in a minute. But I think that they're getting cute and they're trying to keep it close and they're trying to keep it fair and they're trying to do all these things, and it's like you need to lock up the championship. I know that you feel like you have a good buffer, but Max is sitting back there, and if Red Bull figures his car out, he's gonna eat your lunch because he is the best driver in the field by a lot. I'll go like I'll die on that hill any day. I'm not saying I like Max as a person, but when he's in a car, he is unbeatable. If all things are equal, and McLaren needs to not get cute with their stupid team orders and just let it play out the way it plays out, even if it gives Oscar an insurmountable lead over Lando and it makes Lando, upset. There's always next year for Lando. My other note I had was Oscar has outdriven Lando this year, from what I could tell. And again, I'm not a Formula One guy, but my layman's eyes have seen that. The only edge Lando seems to have is he seems to qualify better on average. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's what my eyes are telling me. But then, of course, he's had those two bad pit stops that were like 5 seconds each in two races, which in Formula One's inexcusable. In IndyCar,
yeah.
that's racing, but in Formula One, you can't
Zach
do
need
that.
Zach needs to get his pit guys shaped up. They can't afford this kind of stuff, especially
Yeah,
if they don't want more drama than there's already going to be, because that's what caused the drama with the team orders
right.
in the last situation
Yeah, and I
was
mean,
that.
credit to Oscar to be like, this is a dumb idea, but it's team orders, so I'll do it. He said on the radio, like, okay, I'll let him buy,
Yeah.
you know. But then of course Oscar then runs it into the wall in the most recent race, right? So that
Yep.
also didn't help his chances to stay ahead. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see what you think though, since this is your team.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be fun to watch from here on in, to the end of the season. It's going to be fun. It's going to be, unless something dramatic happens in the next race or two, it's going to be tight. And I think both guys really want to win this championship. So what I what I what I did is I went back through and I looked at the remaining 7 races and what happened with those last year. That's kind of all I can go off of. And so uh, Lando outqualified Oscar in all 7 of these races last year. All 7 of them outqualified. Now we know that Lando has problems with his race starts. So qualifying, that's a problem for him. He needs to figure that out. And I really do want to see Lando win. I like Oscar just fine, but I want to see Lando win this one because I think when the deck gets reshuffled next year with the new, the new regulations, the window for Lando is a little shorter because he's been in the league now for several years, whereas Oscar's newer. So I'd like to see Lando get the win before things get shook up too bad. So anyway, uh, like I said, Lando outqualified Oscar in all 7 of the races, but only beat him in 6 of the races. There was one where Oscar did beat him, and that was in Qatar. Oscar landed a P3 where Lando only managed to get P10. It was a bit of a problem last week that Lando didn't capitalize on Oscar crashing out of that race. He basically won DNF for Oscar where Lando wins, and the whole lead is gone. So he had that chance and he didn't capitalize on it. He finished mid scoring points, but so anyway, during that period, Lando won 2 races. The last 7 of last year, Lando won 2, took a P2 in Mexico. So the 2 that he won were Singapore and Abu Dhabi. He took a P2 in Mexico, and then the best that Oscar did was a P3 in Singapore and Qatar. So last year, Lando outperformed Oscar significantly in this stretch of the season. Obviously, things change. Oscar has been doing better than Lando this year in lots of other races that Lando beat him in previously. So, but that all we have to go off is what they've done before, and so it would seem to me that the car is the neither one of their cars seems particularly faster than the other. It's just who which of these drivers does the track suit better. That's what it seems to be, and if that's the case, I do like Lando's chances to close up that gap. It's just going to be hard if they're putting it P1 and P2. The lead is not going to shrink very quickly. There's a pretty
Yeah.
significant gap between P1 and P2, right? It's 5 or
Is
6
it
points.
25 and 18 points?
Yeah,
Is that
7
right?
points.
Or 7
So at
points, something
that
like that?
so that kind of math would be that a 25-point lead, it would take four races for that lead to evaporate,
Yeah, to
with
like
Lando coming
switch.
first
Yeah.
and Piastri coming second.
Yep.
And so that's not easy to do. That's hard to do. So anyway, that's kind of the situation that we're in. I if you go back and listen to any of our previous episodes, you'll hear me ranting about team orders as well. I really hope it doesn't come down to that. At some point, they're going to have to let them race. Once the
Yes.
championship
100%.
is locked up, they can't do this. It can't come down to that. It has to come down to racing and letting them do their thing to see who's gonna win this thing. I
Well,
think it would be a bad look if they start messing too much with it.
well, I think the other problem though is that if Red Bull figures out Max's car and he wins all the rest of the races and McLaren struggles, like I don't think he can overtake P1, but he could split the two. And so if they do this thing where they're just kind of letting, they're just kind of every other race they're winning and then going second, winning, going second, or then suddenly Max starts winning every single one. Like you
Yeah.
should have just let Oscar take a gargantuan lead that's unconquerable at that point.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Yeah. Well,
you
okay.
know,
So you teed us up for our next discussion point, and we don't want to keep this going for forever. We may have to cut off some of our agenda, but I did want to talk about Max because you said it, man. This guy is the best. He is so good, and yeah, you can take it or leave it if you think his personality isn't great off the track. There's been plenty of things where he's seemed like kind of a jerk. I will say, I think we mentioned this in a previous episode. I've been noticing more of like a social media presence of trying to get people to soften up their belief about Max. For example, the one we talked about before was that when it was announced that Checo was going to be one of the drivers for Cadillac next year, it was this big thing that kept popping up all over social media that the first person to text Checo and let him know, say congratulations was Max. And I just feel like there's been several little things like that where they're trying to soften his image or something. He doesn't seem like he would care at all about that. I don't know if a marketing team is involved, a PR firm, something, but yeah. Anyway, all of that aside, the guy can freaking drive. So he's won
yeah,
2 races in a row. In a previous episode, I mentioned that he had won last at Imola, which was well earlier in the season, and I was wondering, are we going to see this guy on the top step again? And yeah, sure enough, the last 2 races, he's pulled out a win in Monza, a win in Baku, and he's looking unbeatable.
yeah, not close.
There have been
Neither race was
dominant
close.
drives.
Yeah, yeah,
Then you throw in that this was an off week, and he went and decided to ride in the GT3 race, which is
yep,
like a sports car,
mhm,
and at the Nurburgring, which is infamously difficult to drive, and
yeah,
he beat the tar out of everybody
yep,
in that as well.
by over a minute.
It's an endurance race, but yeah, in his stint, he just
Yeah,
blew everyone away. So I mean, this cat is unheard of, and we're watching greatness right now. We're watching a Schumacher type. We're watching a Senna type, a
yeah,
legendary driver.
yeah. I just, that win at the, they call the Nordschleife the Green Hell, right? That's the nickname for the Nurburgring, and he gets the pole, and then he's in it on turn one. He never looks back, and he has over a minute lead by the time they switch drivers. And it's just, the guy's never driven the track before. You know what I mean? I mean, I watched the racer. The racer did a video on the race, which was pretty good. I'm not gonna not say who the sources are, where I'm getting my information from. One of the things they called out, which I think is important to mention, is that Max is a sim racer generation driver. So he's driven the track a million times probably on a sim, and sims now are so accurate that it's basically being in the car other than the G forces and whatnot. So, but that's still, I mean, this guy, he's competitive. He win. How many poles has he won this year? Even though he hasn't won races, he still squeaks these poles out in
Yeah.
Formula One with an inferior car
Mm-hmm.
every single weekend. Um, that's why I say, like, if they can figure out, if Red Bull can figure out that chassis, RB whatever they're on, RB12 or RB whatever, you know, if they can figure that out where he can be, even if it's just even with McLaren on performance, then Oscar and Lando are toast. Like, they cannot compete with them if
Yeah, he's too
he's
good.
as good or faster than they are. If his car's better. So
Yeah, I mean, can we really find a weakness in Max's driving? He's good on defense. I mean, he's so aggressive that it looks like he's doing something wrong to defend. I think, but but
that's
racing
European
is
racing, though, I think.
well, and racing is about pushing the limits, and that's not
Mhm.
just through the apex of the turns, right? That's how you defend. It's how you start the race. It's how you attack. He's aggressive in every area, and the thing about it is that it rarely comes back to bite him. Very rarely comes back to bite him. He rarely picks up a penalty for something that he did wrong. He rarely cooks it into the wall. He he's pushing every limit. I mean, I kind of have been like you, where I don't particularly care for him, and I didn't particularly care for Red Bull and Christian Horner and all of that so
Yeah,
much. But when I watch sports, I watch for the greatness. That's the first
that's
thing,
right.
And I
Yeah.
didn't used to be like that. As a kid, you love your home team, you love the people that you root for, and you get kind of emotionally attached to that. And as an adult, I'm more like, well, I know I've been burned too many times thinking somebody's a great guy, only to find out they either weren't or whatever.
Mhm.
That now, if I'm watching a sport, I want to see who's really good, and Max is just fantastic. So right now, he's currently P3 in the drivers' championship. I mean, P3. He's the guy behind the McLarens who've been dominating. Not a Mercedes driver, not a Ferrari driver. Max in a Red Bull that's, like you said, inferior. He's sitting on 255 points. He has a 43-point cushion over George Russell in P4. So I mean, 43 points. We were just talking about how hard it is to make up 25 points. 43 is even more. And when you're not hitting the top step of the podium, it's even harder to close up that gap. So I think he's pretty secure in his P3 at least. He's got a 90-point lead over Leclerc in P5. I mean, he's dominating the guys right below him. Red Bull, I think that they are. So there's a battle. There's going to be a battle down these last final 7 races for P2 in the constructors championship. Right now, P2, which is Mercedes, they just overtook Ferrari last week. The difference between P2 and P4, which is Red Bull, is 18 points. So there's 3 teams in there in an 18-point window fighting for second. If Max continues on this trajectory and Yuki can just do
That's the
decently,
trick,
like,
though. That's the trick because he started to come on the last couple races. Yuki's been
yeah,
looking good, right? So
last week he finally got some points,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
So if he can hold up his side of it, that's a cursed seat though. That second
It's a
Red Bull
curse seat.
seat.
Yeah.
Ask Lawson about that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you lasted 2 races in that thing. I still think that might have been a mistake because
It
Lawson's
was. It
looking
was.
good.
They should have given him more time. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but Yuki, he just has to manage like a four P4 to P7, somewhere in that range. If he does that, Red Bull, I think, steals P2, which will be a coup if they can snag P2 this year.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
yeah, that's kind of the situation we're in. Did you have any other thoughts about Max or?
I just think he's maybe the greatest driver of this generation. I mean, no disrespect to Hamilton, but I mean, Max does things in a car that you can't say, well, it's because he has the best car. Of course he's going to win. Like he just finds a way every
Yeah.
single time to shock everybody. And I don't, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, it's not like he's making high percentage moves. Like he's not playing it safe. He's throwing it in there and he's coming out clean on the other side. And you just don't see that in any racing. So it's, we're lucky in this era to have Hamilton and Max like in the same, like they're in the same car,
Yeah.
same Alonso too. I would throw him also in there as a he's probably criminally underrated. Alonso is, Aston Martin hasn't really done him much justice this year, but you know, we have really there are really good drivers in Formula One right now,
Yeah.
where it's like racecraft is all capital letters. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it was last week, we talked about who who we thought could do something with that second seat at Red Bull, and both James and I independently came to the conclusion that Alonso would be the best one in there because he's the only other guy who drives the way that Max drives. I mean, or even close, right? Throwing
Yeah.
it in there and not making a ton of mistakes, right? So he's got that
Mhm.
aggressive front end style where he's attacking the turns, and it's just not really doing him anything at Aston Martin. Like you said, the car isn't there, but he does seem to have that racecraft, similar, I think, to what Max has. Um, with that, I guess we'll take a couple minutes and we can talk about this last topic, which was, who do we think has been the most surprising team or driver this year? And I'll go ahead and throw mine out there, just because I know you haven't followed the season as closely, so maybe you'll want to piggyback on something I say. So for one, and I came up with kind of a two for each. Oscar, Oscar Piastri. I mean, for him to jump Lando, who Lando is a good driver. I think there's no question that Lando is a fast driver, especially race pace driver, uh, and he uh, has some weaknesses in his game, I think. But for Oscar, who's a young guy who's only been racing for a couple of seasons, to see this level of improvement and this level of focus, I think has been surprising to me, and he's surpassed him as the number one driver. I know McLaren tries to act like there's not a number one driver or number two driver. He's very close to, at least for this season, taking that role and being like, well, hey, we need to put all our eggs in the Oscar basket. So that was one that I came up with. Any reaction to that?
That's a surprising one, I would say. Actually, I'm surprised. I wouldn't have guessed you would have picked Oscar for that. So yeah, that's a surprise. Because I approached this, by the way. I picked a team and a driver that when you say surprising, I thought like performing well above expectations. I think
Yeah,
Oscar has I think he has those expectations on his shoulders. I mean, it's great to see him like take that next step.
yeah,
Um, you know, but I think that like my pick for most surprising was Nico Hulkenberg getting that podium. And he did it in the rain, by the way. That was a rain, a weather race. And he didn't do it on strategy. He did it on racecraft. Like he won that, or he didn't win, but he got to
he
third.
earned it. Yeah.
Uh, he earned it, and which was awesome. So, um, I bet Max was the first one to text him for that too. And then for team, I think the most surprising for me, and maybe James will appreciate this, is Williams has actually done really really well this year. I remember very early in the year, when I was, I guess starred here once or twice early on, and my pick, my crazy pick was Alpine in the points, and I actually kind of thought Alpine would be a stronger team this year. It turns out it's Williams that has been the stronger team from the other the other guys type of thing. So I would say, uh, you know, Kick Salvers, they've showed flashes of brilliance every once in a while. Hulk, getting that podium or whatever, but really Williams has been consistently good all season long. Which shout out to Williams and to James for that.
Yeah, those were the two picks I came up with for my team was Williams. They've made such huge strides. They've
Yeah,
now outscored. It's either their previous 7 or 8. I think with the latest result that they got with Carlos Sainz on a podium, I think they might have surpassed even their last 8 years combined points
wow,
total in this one year. So huge deal for them. Williams has been great. That the
yeah,
podium that Sainz got was really awesome. I mean, James got slightly choked up, I felt like, in the last
that's
episode of this
awesome.
because
I
he's
love it.
watching his team. Um, really, their first real podium since 2017, which was a Lance Stroll at Baku, of all people, Lance Stroll. But they're sitting in P5 in the constructors championship. They've just made a huge stride. So that was definitely my pick for most surprising team. And I also noted Sauber. Sauber, with, you mentioned the podium, they're in P8. They have 55 points. They only scored 4 points all of last season, so they're just kicking it from where they were before. And so that's definitely been great. And the Hulkenberg podium moment has been my favorite moment of the season so far, and it's going to be very difficult to knock that down from the number one spot. And something real special is going to have to happen for me to lose that. He drove 239 races to get to his first
Yeah,
podium. That's
yeah,
insane. The guy's a
yeah,
good dude. He is a good driver. I mean, you like to see some success there. That was
yeah,
my favorite moment of the year.
yeah.
Um,
He's universally beloved.
yeah. The only other surprise note that I had was and this is even silly that I'm even saying this in light of the conversation we just had, but Max Verstappen, uh, I am shocked. I'm just shocked. Like the car was clearly not the car anymore. I think like we said, he's a generational driver. He's like a Senna, Hamilton, a Schumacher. I think in the right scenario, he could end up being the greatest racer we've ever seen. I think he could dethrone a Schumacher. I think most people kind of think that Michael Schumacher is the greatest. Of course, he won the championship 7 times. So did Lewis Hamilton. However, people have, I think, sort of gravitated towards Schumacher of being a little bit better driver than Lewis, and I think Max has something that these other guys maybe don't have, and if if he can stay in a even moderately competitive car, what we're seeing is unparalleled greatness out of him. So that's kind of the way that I chalked up my most surprising
Yeah,
moments,
it's a good
teams.
list. It's a good list. I
Um,
like it.
yeah, well, I appreciate it, man. I guess we probably better wrap it up. I think James and I made some bold predictions for Singapore last time. I think Lando's going to win it. That's not just my bold prediction, but my hope, because I want to see that race the race for P1 to tighten up um, even more over the next few races, so that we have something really special to happen. In fact, I'm going to be at the Austin Grand Prix in October, so I'm hoping
Nice.
for as much drama that they can set up as possible. I'll be looking for that, and then if it's that tight, I'll have very hard time not trying to find some kind of a ticket to go down and watch the race in Las Vegas. It's about a 6-hour drive from where I live now, so that would be really tempting if it's like neck and neck as it comes down to Vegas, um, which is like the third to last race. Might be worth going down and checking out, huh?
All right. For bold prediction, I'll say rain in Singapore. It'll be a weather race. And I'm gonna say Max wins it 3 for 3. There you go.
Those are bold, especially when you try to wade into meteorological
That's
territory.
right. That's right.
Even the weathermen can't predict when it's going to rain. So yeah, that would be interesting. Um, and yeah, Max winning a third race in a row. I mean, that would just add to the discussion we had before, and it would
Yep.
throw a little bit of a wrench in the McLaren battle, depending
Yeah.
especially on where those guys shake out. But I think I'm going to add one more bold prediction. Hopefully, James will catch this when he edits this podcast. But my bold prediction is going to be Yuki in the top 5,
Ooh, that's a
building
good
off
one.
of a good result from last week, and also feeling that pressure and rising to the occasion to tighten things up for Red Bull. So those are my bold predictions for the race, and we'll tune back in next week. I think James will be back by then, and so I won't be talking to you next week, but we did definitely like having you here, and there could be other opportunities for you to jump in between now and the end of the season. So keep your skills sharp, Patrick.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm happy to be a reserve driver. Just call me up when you need me.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll sign off
All
the
right.
way we usually do. Adios.
See you later.